Yes, I think us girls are excited to play somewhere that is not our home court. We last year we talked about how whenever we were at home, we almost seemed to be. Coach Tony said we would be like maybe a little distracted because we have fans and people. But I feel like we've been really focused and taking care of business on our home court so far this season, 5-0. So this will be a test to see if we can carry that over to an away trip, even though we're going a few minutes up the road.
Kyle, I'm not sure how much you've looked at SMU, but tell me what you know about them and what you're expecting from them.
We know that they're a really good transition team. They like to create through transition. They're a quick team. They have they're going to be physical on the O boards. So just us being able to go out there and know that stuff and execute, I think we'll be fine.
Now, obviously, you guys have dealt with this same, I guess, type of, you could call it distraction, but in terms of when Oregon's that next team on the schedule, how much or how easy is it for you guys to focus on SMU? Does it need to be addressed at all?
Honestly, no. I don't think our coaches have had to say anything to us about that. Our approach is one game at a time. We take it one day at a time, one practice at a time. And our preparation has been for SMU. So just not skipping over that opponent, too, because they're a really good team. We don't want to overlook them in preparation for another good team.
In terms of non-conference, I think you guys played them last year.
Yes.
How helpful is that when you play a non-conference opponent that you're semi-familiar with from last year?
Definitely very helpful. It's almost kind of like those conference matchups where you're like, okay, you go into it the first time and you might not know as well. But whenever you meet them again, even though they've had changes in their roster and their teams, we kind of know some of their habits, some of the things they like to run, and just know what to expect a little bit more than usual.
I know Nikki had talked about, I guess it's TK Pitts,
Mm-hmm.
that she likes to kind of get up in your grill. Is that team-wide or is that mainly just her? Or are y'all expecting to see that at each position, I guess?
Honestly, she's a really, really good defender, and she creates a lot of her offensive opportunities off of defense and how in your face she is. But I would say that's their whole team. I think they're really, really physical, like Kyla said, and they're going to try to, play a little bit of bully ball and body us. So we just have to stay poised and maintain our composure.
Both of you, Bell first. Y'all are scoring a lot of points. Is that kind of the makeup of this team? Do you see that continuing?
I definitely see that continuing. We have so much talent down the line. When any one of us has an off night, there's going to be somebody else who steps up and is ready to go completely down the line, 1 through 13. And then also, I think we're finding our defensive identity as well, which has helped us to create offensive opportunities. So I think those combined are going to be things that you continue to see from this group.
I definitely agree. With our depth chart, like she said, everybody can be a scorer and create offense. And we can excel in that way. I don't think that there's anybody on our team that you can look at and be like, I don't really know if they'll be able to create something on offense for us. Like she said, 1 through 13, you go down the line, there's going to be somebody who can go off on any random day.
Now, how big was it for you guys to put that tape out like you did against McNeese State, so that opponents watch it and are pretty much afraid of the three-point threat no matter who's on the court?
It's a really big deal, being able to defend the three-point line with us and being able to stretch the floor. It helps us because we also have a lot of people who are really good off the drive, creating one-on-one and attacking. So if they have to respect us from out there, I feel like it kind of is a pick your poison type thing. Either you close out and we blow by you and create maybe a one more or get to the rim, or you don't come all the way out, we're going to shoot lights out. So.
Kyla, you get a chance probably, I guess, every day in practice, but all the different type post players y'all have. Letty at 6'7", Bugs at whatever she is. I mean, you have a lot of different type. Does that help your game, I guess, to go against the different type players like that?
I definitely think it does. Like you said, going against Letty and her length, we're going to see that when we go in Big 12, like against Texas, against TCU, with them having Sedona Prince on their team, and she's the same height as Letty. But she's a lot more experienced, but still same height. That'll help us down the line, especially me specifically. And then you see Bugs and Bella that play at the 4 a little bit, and sometimes I have to guard the 4, and you see that they're able to space out. It definitely helps being a more versatile defender in the post. I feel like all of our post players having that aid of like we have versatile post players to guard in practice helps in the games because not every post player is going to be a traditional back to the basket post.
Kylie, you said scoring, anybody can do it. You said 1 through 13. You've had 2 games in a row where all 13 players have played and scored, which is a little unusual. But what does that say about your team when everybody can contribute like that?
We just dogs.
Yeah, we get after it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's mainly just coming off the bench with the mindset of I may not be a starter, but I'm going to come out and you're going to think I'm a starter. Like everybody comes out and like they have a plus and minus sheet, and everybody's like I'm going to have 16 plus. We don't ever just sit on the bench and be like, well, didn't get in. When I do get in, I'm not going to contribute. No, we're going to come out and we're going to attack you. And that comes from everybody who comes out on the floor. So I think us coming out and everybody being able to, for one play, like you said, that's not a circumstance you see all the time, but everyone coming out and scoring, that's like something that a lot of teams I feel like can't do. And we have the depth chart and the talent to do it.
Amen to that, sister.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Yes, like this week.
Yeah, I think it's always good to go on the road. It's different how you prepare. And certainly SMU analytically has been way better. They score better at home. They shoot it better at home. They played Colorado really well, I thought, at home. Nicholls State is actually pretty solid. Gave them a really good game, but I think they're a really veteran team, a team that's not going to be intimidated by us based on what they came in here and did last year. There's a lot of things that are different about our team from last year to this year as well. When you look at kind of who was out on the floor in key moments in the game last year, but I think we need to go play on the road, and certainly after Utah, it was good to get a couple games where everyone got to play, but that's not the normal reality as the season goes along.
Coach, when you have a game against a non-conference group of 5 team, how beneficial is it to have not only seen them yet last year, but also have a recent common opponent against them that you can kind of compare how they did against what you did against Harvard?
Yeah, I thought, honestly, of all their games, Harvard wasn't really them. I don't know if that was because they had no prep time. They played them in a tournament. It was the second day of the tournament. I'm sure they prepared for Toledo. You don't take anyone for granted, and Toledo's good. And so, were they struggling with the 5-out motion? Why were they struggling? Did they? But I think I think playing against them last year gives us a feel, for what they thought they could do to us. I also think they played us a lot of zone last year. And I think we've been more productive against zones this year, so I don't know that they can go. Not that they won't use it; they play both man and zone, but I think their strength is kind of their toughness. Young can score from a lot of spots on the floor, and I think they're top 15 in the country and getting to the free throw line. So that's like a big key for them and their success is getting to the line. So. Certainly they're playing a lot of the same players that they played a year ago, outside of Young being that transfer leading scorer. But we faced her in Cancun a couple years ago when she was at Houston. So, Toyel's doing a great job with their team, and they play really hard and really get after it defensively.
Yeah, you talked about TK, I think, the other day. Asked Bella about it a little, not Bella, yes, Bella. What do you see from her, and how difficult is she on the defensive end, I guess?
Yeah, TK is, I think sometimes when you go to your bench, you get better, and I think she's a player, not to take away from their starters, but I think the energy that she brings, she's good defensively and can guard multiple positions. She is super efficient at the offensive end. She takes no bad shots. She's going to take a wide open 3, but she's more apt to cut cut to the rim, drive it to the rim, grab an offensive rebound. And so I just think her energy is contagious. Her length is impressive. And so I feel like they get a lift really at both ends when she comes in the game.
Which I know obviously you guys are focused on SMU right now, but just in case we don't talk to you again before that game, just in terms of Oregon and putting that game together, how, I guess, exciting is that to have a game against two of the bigger brands in college basketball?
Yeah, I've known Kelly Graves a long time, and always respected, his style. I think, he was maybe people under the radar when he was at Gonzaga and had Courtney Vandersloot, but was one of the most fun teams to watch because she was so good in ball screens, and that translated to Sabrina and Satu. Probably a heavy favorite to win a championship the COVID year when the tournament got shut down. And so I think they've recruited really well. And, right now I think Oregon's got talented players, but they're not super deep and they're very young. So they only play one player consistent minutes that's not a freshman or a sophomore. And so I think at a time where you play a lot of teams with fifth year and four-year seniors, I think that's been their greatest challenge. They have talent and they're going to be better, I think, as the season goes along, but I think they can score. They have size. Chance Gray and Grace Van Sluten were really big-time recruits coming out of Ohio. And so I think it's going to be a really good matchup here, and hopefully we can get a crowd as big or bigger than Utah with it being on a Sunday, and just challenge the students on campus to come out and support us the way they did against Utah.
Nikki, you had talked about Dariana, kind of her rebounding being affected by it. She's having to play a lot of free and stuff. I don't know that I saw her ever have a zero rebound game like she did the other day. Is that concerning, or?
Yes and no. I think it's a learned thing. Like, Bugs played the 5 in high school. She was an interior player, always been a rebounder. And we're still playing her at the power forward offensively, but defensively, because of Asia's strength, we match Asia up, physically to people and let Bugs use her length and guard on the perimeter more. She'll switch. She'll be in the paint some, but I think it was her limited minutes, obviously, in that game. I don't think she would have gone a whole game without rebounding, but challenging her to pursue balls when she's guarding. When you're guarding Kennedy McQueen when you play Utah, you don't want to stray too far. And Kennedy wasn't going to the glass a lot. And so it's easy when you get matched up with a good shooter to not, to not pursue balls off the rim. And so I just think it's a new challenge for her. I think if you ask her, I think she'd prefer to guard on the perimeter all day, every day, rather than bang, and get beat up in the post. But I think that's part of, kind of the whole idea of when you're playing the 4, you're defending the 4, you're defending the 5. Those players tend to play lane line to lane line and, spend a lot of time in the paint, cutting to the paint. And so you tend to be around the ball more. And so I think we're not going to see that a lot. I think she's going to continue to rebound, but I think that's part of it. Part of it is minutes. Part of it is opponent. And part of it is like system and style and who she's guarding. So I think it's just going to depend game to game a little bit.
But she looks like she's defending well out there.
She's getting there. It's we're not asking her to battle through tons and tons of screens. Like we're switching screens with her. But and working to defend straight line drivers, is still a little bit new to her. But I think she has the ability. She probably, using too much coach jargon, she probably big steps better than anybody on our team when she makes up her mind to do it and really push off and drive in the direction of the ball handler. But when you're late, if you're late to a closeout, then you got to run alongside. And so really getting her to understand that her length can play to her advantage, and even if she's beat, to not foul. It's like we as a team need to be better at not fouling on the drive because, we have to trust sometimes our rotation, our rim protection, and just wall up and try to make them score over and around us as opposed to slapping down and making plays just because we're frustrated we got beat.
Coach, when you put 28 threes on tape in a two-game stretch, do you think that will lead to teams maybe changing up how they defend you when that's out there?
Well, I can tell you, we certainly weren't going to zone Utah. I think when you put 4 and 5 people on the floor that can make threes, you're not going to stay with it if a team makes them. I certainly think we've had a tendency as games have gone along to shoot it better as the game progressed than we do in the first quarter. So, one of the messages I keep preaching is we don't want to settle early, and we want to get a piece of the paint and we want to pick and roll to the rim and not always pop and get comfortable because I think when you put pressure on the rim, off the bounce, off the roll, you're going to get the better threes that you want. And we tend to get those as the game goes along, but we tend to want to hit home runs, I feel like, the first 5 minutes of games. And I think when we get to the point where we execute at a higher level the first 5 minutes, you're gonna have to mix it a little. I think teams are gonna play as if teams play zone either as their primary or their secondary defense, but they do it regularly, we're still going to see it. Whether SMU thinks they should zone us 30 minutes like they did last year, maybe not. But it doesn't mean if they're man coming out of a timeout, they won't go one possession of zone and see what happens. They may steal possessions that way just because I've called something to run against man and then they come out in zone. And so that takes you out of kind of your ATO. So I think we're going to see it. Hopefully we execute at a high enough level that we don't care. We don't care whether they play man or zone. I mean, I think, we've been really efficient this season and want to continue to be efficient. And efficiency comes from taking good shots. Obviously it takes having good offensive players, but there's a lot of good offensive players in the country that are high volume and low efficiency. And so I think the strength of this team can be sharing the basketball, being efficient because we're taking really good shots.
One of the benefits you see that you get from having 2 straight games where everyone plays, everyone contributes.
I think it's morale, as much as anything. I mean, these are college athletes that have high expectations and want to play, and they're all talented, and when there's some separation but not tons and tons of separation, it's opportunity for everyone to feel good. I think that's the good part. I can tell you it is way more stressful for me, and I know people are going to think this is crazy. It's way more stressful to me to manage minutes in these type of games than it is to coach in a top 5 matchup with the game on the line. Because all I'm worried about in those games is calling the right play and having the right people out there at the right time. I'm not worried about whether someone's played 12 minutes or 18 minutes. I'm not worried about who I need to get back in the game or who. I mean, I stare more at the box score in those type of games than I ever do in a game that's one possession, 10 points, whatever. And so I think that may sound strange, but that's stressful to me. Just trying to figure out how to, and you're trying to balance not only getting people minutes that deserve it because they've worked hard in practice and it gives them opportunity to show maybe what they're capable of and earn playing time in, quote, more meaningful matchups. But you're also not wanting to take away from players that need to stay in a rhythm, that need to be ready to play against SMU. And if they haven't gotten many shots, do you get them back in and get them a couple buckets? Dre got in foul trouble, and so I rode her a little longer in the third. The game before that, I let Bugs play the whole third quarter because she'd been in foul trouble in the first half. So it's decisions like that where you're trying to balance, keeping people in a good headspace and in a rhythm and all those things. So I just want to coach, run the right plays and call the right defense and, have our girls ready to win a basketball game. All right, thanks.